He is the former starting quarterback for the Alabama Crimson Tide, John Parker Wilson, brought to you each week by the WHMZ Group at Morgan Stanley. Given the complexities of people's financial situation these days, you want a group that has the experience and qualifications to handle all aspects of your financial life, and I mean all of them. The WHMZ Group in Tuscaloosa is a team of 20 experts who work together to simplify and streamline their clients' financial lives. John Parker Wilson is a part of that team. They are in Tuscaloosa with offices also in Birmingham and Atlanta. Call to set up an appointment or a consultation today at 205-344-8443. That's 205-344-8443. Welcome in, John Parker.
Gary, what's going on, man?
Man, I tell you, it's going. And we're going to get to Tim Williams and distractions and all those things in a moment with you. But I want to start out with Blake Barnett because, again, having played quarterback, and before you were the starter in 2006, you were the backup to Brody Crowell in 2005, and I know that he was a senior and you were a redshirt freshman. Nonetheless, you were the backup. You were one snap away from playing. Your take on this decision by Blake Barnett to leave now, 4 games into the season, as the backup, one play away from being the starter, having played quite significantly, over 200 yards passing and 2 touchdowns in the first 4 games. It seems curious to me to do it now. As a former quarterback, how do you view it?
Yeah, I think it's unfortunate. I think to come out here and 4 games into the season, decide to make a change on, the guys that you've been working with and that you've been getting reps and you've been going out there and developing these relationships and chemistry with guys throughout the team. I think the timing of it is what's so unusual, right? So we're in the middle of the season. Everybody's working their butts off to try to win each week, to win an SEC championship, to get in the playoffs, to win a national championship. And then here, one of your brothers is going to decide, during the middle of the season to up and leave. I think it's becoming more and more common throughout college football, so it's not surprising. I just think I probably would have handled it a little bit different.
Yeah, and I agree with you. Not to bash Blake Barnett, I interviewed him out in Arizona prior to the national championship game. He came across as a class act. I've talked to people that have class with him. I've talked to one of his instructors. They say just as fine a young man as you'll ever come across. But again, this is a very valuable player, and it's not a situation where he's the 4th-string quarterback. Clearly, Alabama understands he's talented. He started the first game. It's easy to forget he was the first game starter.
Yep.
He played this past week through a touchdown pass, and again, you've been the starter and you've been the backup, but the backup quarterback is a critical position on any football team, not just because you're one play away from being the starter, but also in terms of the preparation that week, in terms of having, as you said, a rhythm with your teammates, especially this guy, because I think they were going to continue to play him in some of these games. You've already said it, but I mean, you can take the angle that this is a very selfish decision for Blake Barnett, and this is a guy that tweeted out in February, if you're scared of competition, this probably isn't the place for you anyway. And right. now he seems to be scared of the fact that he's the backup and has lost the job to Jalen Hurts and is kind of taking his football and running somewhere else.
Yeah, and I mean, let's be honest, Jalen Hurts runs the ball a lot. He is asked to do more than just your traditional drop-back passer that's going to scramble only when he has to. I mean, we've seen time after time that they're dialing up design quarterback runs that's putting the ball in his hands, 40, 50 times a game. At some point, just the probability of him missing a series, a quarter, a half, or a game is probably going to happen. I mean, we don't ask Derrick Henry to go out there and carry the ball 40 times a game, and it's kind of where our quarterback's at now. So you would think he's going to get a chance to play. He's one snap away. Be ready. Go out there. I think the word you said was selfish. I mean, Alabama's invested a lot of time, a lot of practice reps, those valuable reps during training camp, and now halfway or a third into the season that you can't get back. They're giving them to him. They weren't giving them to Bateman. They weren't giving them to Cornwell. They thought he was going to be the guy. They knew he was capable enough to play, and now he just up and leaves, and probably some coach promised him or told him, hey, you can come in here and be the starter. All you got to do is show up. Well, that sounds good on paper, but nobody's going to just give you a job anywhere. You got to earn it. You got to go out there and win the job, be the guy. And I think, leaving in the middle of the season is going to carry on with you wherever you go. I mean, you go to another team, are you going to leave that team? We've seen guys leave Alabama, go to another school, and then leave that school also. So, I think it's just becoming par for the course in college football, and it's kind of unfortunate, to be honest with you.
John Parker, I think it's even a red flag for NFL scouts. I mean, I know he's just a redshirt freshman, but I think that this will follow him, and when it comes draft time, I think that'll be a demerit for him. I think they'll look at this as a negative in terms of his value in terms of being a team player and how much he sold out for the team. Do you think that's something that could follow him even that far down the road?
I think so. I mean, I think there's different ways to do this. If you're going to transfer, do it at the beginning of the season or during the spring when people haven't, like I said earlier, invested so much time, energy, and effort on you. Yeah, what are you going to do later on, if when the going gets tough, you're going to up and leave then? I think it could have been handled differently. Are the college or the pro scouts going to look at it? I think this definitely goes on your permanent record. So just interesting timing. I know it upsets the coaches and the players that, it becomes a brotherhood in that locker room. Mm-hmm. You spend so much time with the guys, with the coaches. And then for a guy just kind of leave in the middle of the night, it just kind of rubs you the wrong way.
John Parker Wilson, our guest, he appears each week courtesy of the WHMZ Group at Morgan Stanley. If you've got some money that you want to invest and you want a team of professionals that's going to keep you in the loop and put you on the team with them, you need to call them today at 205-344-8443. John Parker, even from a developmental standpoint, him personally as a quarterback, it's curious the decision to leave. To me, from this standpoint, you're the backup. That means you're going to get a certain amount of reps every week. One play away, as we said, from being the starter. But also, Lane Kiffin clearly knows how to develop quarterbacks as well as anybody in the country. Just to be able to stay here and finish out the year in practice, not to mention game experience under Lane Kiffin in this system, continue to develop as a player. I don't see how this helps you leaving at this time of the year as far as your own personal development as a quarterback. I think you would have been better served to have stayed here, and even if it was just to be the backup this season. You agree?
Yeah, I think Lane has showed that he could go out there and get a quarterback ready to play and develop the heck out of them, and get them game ready to go out there and compete. Not to mention, you're not going to get any better practice as a backup going against the first-team defense for Alabama. I mean, it's the toughest defense in the country, and here you are going day in and day out playing against these guys. If you can complete a ball against that defense, you can complete a ball against any defense in the country. And I think one of the things that we heard on the broadcast last week was we've got a lot of 4- and 5-star guys, but when you can practice against those guys, it's so valuable because you know that going out there on Saturday that you're ultimately prepared to go out there and be successful. Going against that defense is big. It's really big in your development as a quarterback.
No doubt, and he's going to miss that. You said something earlier in regards to Jalen Hurts and the strategy that Alabama's employed with him at quarterback with a lot of the inside zone plays, a lot of the predetermined quarterback runs. They've known that they've had Blake Barnett behind him. No disrespect to Cooper Bateman or David Cornwell, but they're behind Blake Barnett for a reason. With Barnett leaving, does that change Lane Kiffin's offensive strategy at all in regards to how much they run Jalen Hurts, knowing that if he does go down, Blake Barnett's not there to come in as his backup?
Such a good question. Obviously, I've never gone out there and had to call plays and worrying about another guy coming in. I don't think you can change your strategy, in case a guy gets hurt. I think you try to develop the young guys, the guys that are going to be backup in case he does. But going out there, I think we've seen it takes a while, I think, in the past 3 years since Coach Kiffin has been there to find our identity as an offense. It's not developed in the first game. It's kind of developed over 3 or 4 games. I think we're getting there, so you can't all of a sudden say, we only have Jalen now, so we're not going to run him as much. I think you got to go out there and call the best plays you can and try to get first downs and touchdowns. And if that's calling Jalen off the right edge with O.J. Howard lead blocking him, then you got to keep dialing it up. And I think I think he's good enough. Coach Kiffin's good enough of having a separate game plan for separate quarterbacks. You can't ask David Cornwell to go run the same plays running the ball that Jalen did. There'll probably be more dropbacks, more play actions. So I think the offensive staff will have a separate game plan for other quarterbacks. I think Blake Barnett was the closest one to being like Jalen, though, and just stepping in and kind of playing the same role that Jalen Hurts has been playing.
Cooper Bateman does move up to the backup quarterback position, we would assume, ahead of David Cornwell. Let's talk about him and kind of maybe, again, not to paint Blake Barnett in a negative light, but here's a guy that came in here with a lot of hoopla, too. He went to the quarterback camps and, the Elite 11 and all that as well. Could have gone a lot of different places. He's a fourth-year junior. He has started a game against Ole Miss last year. A lot of people felt he would be the starter this year. Maybe not quite the overall talent of Hurts and Barnett, but this is a guy who does seem to get it. He seems to be the ultimate team player. I've never heard anything in regards to Cooper Bateman about complaining, talking about transferring, or anything else. So maybe while you go down a little bit in terms of overall talent level, I would think it has to be reassuring for that coaching staff, though, to know you've got a veteran guy who gets it as a teammate, that if something happened to Jalen Hurts, you could call on Cooper Bateman to be the backup. You agree?
Totally. Team guy, team player. He's out there. You can just look at his demeanor on the sideline. Hey, you know what? I'm a quarterback. I started every game I've played since I was 6. It didn't matter. He's probably the starting shortstop for the baseball team. He's been the starting point guard or shooting guard for the basketball, everywhere he's been, and now he finds himself third-string quarterback. We're talking about Cooper here, and he just went out. You could tell he was with the team, with the players, trying to get everybody set on the sidelines, calling the plays. I mean, that's a team guy. If something happens to Jalen, you want somebody like that going in, knowing that he's a leader, that he's going to go out and guys are going to say, you know what, we can trust this guy. He's got our backs at the end of the day. And I think that goes a long way in the locker room of knowing that your teammates got your back. When it becomes, the tough part of the game, this is a guy we can go to battle with. And that's what I think, very easy to see that from Cooper Bateman.
All right, John Parker, before we go to break, I want to talk more about Jalen Hurts. You've had another game now to watch him, to analyze his play, and I'm going to tell you what stands out to me. And you know this. You played here. You know what it can do to quarterbacks, it can do to coaches. Alabama's not for everybody. It's one of those handful of programs that's special, and the pressure is enormous. Not everybody can coach here. Not everybody can play quarterback here. It's not meant for everybody. But when you watch this guy, to me, I guess what stands out, I watch him in the press box with my binoculars. I don't care if he just threw a 50-yard touchdown pass, or he just got drilled in the back, or it was a 3-and-out, or he got nailed out of bounds on a run play. When he comes off the field and takes his helmet off, his demeanor is the same every time. I've never seen anything like it. I've never seen this guy's face have any other look than just a look of calm. And right. I don't know if that's good. That's why I'm asking you. Maybe he needs to be a little more animated. But it's clear that the moment's not too big for him and the position's not too big for him. And I'm wondering if you are as amazed as I am that a true freshman who was in high school this time last year playing against high school players has this type of demeanor playing for the University of Alabama and starting as a true freshman. Yeah,
it's been pretty remarkable just to watch him coming in from the A-Day game and then winning the job. And now, just like you said, his demeanor is just tremendous. I mean, as the late Stuart Scott would say, he's as cool as the other side of the pillow.
Really
It doesn't
is.
matter if he throws a pick or a touchdown. And you can't teach that stuff. You can't coach a guy to be like that. It is what he is. And it's really fun just as a former quarterback to watch him go out there because I know how tough it is, but it's even tougher as a true freshman. And they're putting more and more on his plate as the season goes on. He looked good last week against Kent State. Completed some good balls. Working on the down the field shots. That'll come as they open up. But he just continues to get better. Spreads the ball around. Takes care of the ball. I mean, I think that has been the biggest thing in the past couple of games, especially against Ole Miss. Didn't throw an interception, and that goes a long way in winning a ball game. If you start throwing picks, you throw one interception, now you throw two. You only get so many possessions during a game. That dramatically reduces your chances of winning. He's been able to protect the ball, distribute around, and you can just tell how the guys are rallying behind him.
Former Crimson Tide and NFL quarterback John Parker Wilson appears each week courtesy of the WHMZ Group at Morgan Stanley. They're a local four-person investment team, two of whom hold the Chartered Financial Analyst designation. They bring institutional experience to their clients. Investment process includes daily account monitoring and weekly strategy meetings. John Parker Wilson's part of that team. We'll talk with him about that more later. When we come back, though, we're going to talk about the upcoming game against Kentucky, the distraction with Tim Williams being arrested early this morning, and also I'm going to get John Parker's thoughts on what's going on with Auburn. Gus Malzahn, who has been renowned as a play caller, turning over play calling duties to Rhett Lashley. That and more with number 14 when we return to the Gary Harris Show here on Tide 102.9 FM and 102.9.com. John Parker, I want to ask you about distractions, and certainly there have been a lot of them for Alabama since the offseason. And it continues with Tim Williams' arrest at 2:09 a.m. this morning by UAPD on the charge of carrying a firearm without a permit. He posted $300 bond and is out of jail. I assume he'll be at practice today. My assumption is no release from the university yet, that he'll play on Saturday night. But still, there's no way around that. This is the type of thing that Nick Saban hates. This is a distraction 2 days out from an SEC game, your homecoming game. Nobody else seems to overcome distractions better than Alabama. But, talk about this latest situation with Tim Williams and how you think Coach Saban will handle it.
Yeah, it's tough. I mean, where we're at now, 2 days before the game, it's tough to have that distraction. I think Coach Saban does such a good job of addressing it immediately, though, and letting the players and letting, whether it's the individual player or the entire team, know exactly where everybody stands. So there's no question. And a lot of times, I've been with a lot of different teams, kind of uncertain of what's going to happen. Coach Saban has, historically been pretty consistent in how he deals with these things, so there's really no question mark of what's going to happen. I think that being said, it is the homecoming game. Now this distraction, there's a ton of distractions this week.
Yeah.
We're playing an SEC team on Saturday, and it doesn't matter if it's Kentucky or if it's Auburn or LSU, it's an SEC opponent, and the first goal of the season is to make it to Atlanta to play in the SEC championship. That's goal number one. That's the first thing you can accomplish is win the West and play for the SEC championship. And to do that, you've got to win your SEC schedule. And this is the first or the second one up. So you got to go out there and you treat it, definitely different than you did Kent State. You got to go out and win this game, and you got to try to move on from this as fast as you can. So I see Coach Saban address it quickly today in the team meeting, and then getting out on the practice field and getting to work.
I'm so glad you brought that up because that's exactly where I wanted to go. You're right. All these SEC games count one, whether it's Kentucky or whether it's Tennessee. And yet these players are all 19, 20, 21, 22 years old. They know they're 35-point favorites. They know there's homecoming coming up and there's a lot of hoopla and excitement. But you clearly are concerned from the standpoint, as you said, it's still Kentucky. It's still an SEC game. They've got SEC caliber football players, but they also know they're going to Arkansas, they're going to Tennessee, and they're coming home against A&M. Do you worry about their focus not being as sharp for this game as they need it to be?
No, not at all. I think, we've got Arkansas next week, and then we got Tennessee. But as a player, Gary, to be honest, you don't even know unless you told you probably don't know who the next is the schedule.
Okay.
I mean, you're focusing about Kentucky. You haven't looked at Arkansas at all. All it's been is white and blue, and that's all it's been all week. Because you got to go win this game. It doesn't matter if you're 6-0 playing Tennessee if you lose one SEC game. You got to go out and win this game. And I just know from being in that building around these coaches, Kentucky's the only thing on their mind. Now you got to address this and try to move on as fast as you can because you got to practice today. You got to go out there, the last kind of dress rehearsal before Saturday. Go out there, tighten everything up, have a walkthrough tomorrow, and then you got to go out there and play at 6 p.m. on Saturday. And I think that's, last week we played at 11. A lot of people talked about, we're playing 11. Is that tough? I think playing the later games was tougher for me as a player just because you sit around all day. You watch these other teams, you're watching other games. You can think about stuff all day rather than just waking up and going playing. So a lot of time between now and kickoff, and Coach Saban will definitely be on his best coaching job with these guys.
Finally, John Parker, in our final minute, and I know you follow Alabama, but you're also in this state, and you keep an eye on Auburn as well. I want to get your opinion on what's gone on down there. Of course, the shuffling of the quarterbacks And now this announcement by Gus Malzahn, who, let's be honest, he was hired to be the head coach at Auburn because of his offensive prowess, because of his play calling ability. Now he comes out and says, I'm turning over play calling to Rhett Lashley, the offensive coordinator. I want to be a complete head coach. I want to be with the defense. I want to be involved with the special teams. First of all, if I'm an Auburn fan, that concerns me because it sounds like he hasn't been involved in those areas prior. Does it send a mixed message? And what do you think about a guy who's built his reputation as a play caller giving up play calling duties? Do you think this is going to work for Auburn?
I think it's tough, right? So he, like you said, he came in, he was the offensive coordinator. He's the offensive guru. And that's great when you're the offensive coordinator because about 98% of your job responsibilities is being the offensive coordinator. When you're a head coach, you've got 90% of other things that you have to do besides football, whether it's go, meet with the boosters or meet with this group or meet with this organization or do the phone calls, all during the week with the press. There's a lot of other things going on. So, I think recognizing that he's been with Lashley for as long as he has, they probably are on the same page by just about everything. I mean, if I'm an Auburn fan, I kind of like it.
Okay.
He's been trained. The offensive coordinator's been trained. He knows what to do, and he can put 100% of his time, energy, and effort to call on plays and put them in the best situation. And as a head coach, you become the manager. You're the CEO of the team, and there's a lot of things going on besides just calling offensive plays.
All right, you're part of a great team these days as well, the WHMZ group at Morgan Stanley. And if folks have been successful in life, they've got some money that they would like to invest, either for returns while they're still working or certainly for retirement, you guys at the WHMZ group at 205-344-8443 can help them get on the team and plan for their future. Yeah,
Gary, and for that guy that's been working in this business and he's cultivated and he's grown it and it's time to sell it, I think exactly what I was just talking about with Auburn of having that specialist, having that offensive coordinator that only focuses on calling plays, having the head coach that focuses on being the manager or the running backs coach. I think our industry is so complex and complicated that having specialists, and like you said earlier, the CFA, that designation is very big in our industry, and having that specialization, I think that's what sets our group apart. We have a group of advisors that doesn't try to be good at everything. We've got people that are good in each individual area that comes to wealth management. If you want to be part of the team with John Parker Wilson, give the WHMZ group at Morgan Stanley a call today to set up a consultation, 205-344-8443. Offices in Tuscaloosa, Birmingham, and Atlanta. Again, that number, 205-344-8443. Thanks a lot, John Parker. Talk to you next week. All right, Gary, roll tide.